picking up golf ball size hail. If you are in the vicinity of this storm, go find safety now. We have confirmed reports from emergency management that this is in southern Madison County.
These thunderstorms very violent across western Tennessee.
All of West Tennessee and several parts of West Tennessee.
I'm Jason Marks in downtown Jackson. We were the first television crew down here. What did we see? Find out coming up.
I'm Will Carter. Coming up, I'll show you how Mother Nature's fury swept into West Tennessee in a matter of minutes, changing the lives of thousands forever, and what I remember about that tragic night.
Hi, I'm Amy Silver. My first day at WBBJ was the Monday after the storms hit, and in just a little bit, I'm going to share with you how I felt about all the aftermath from the storm.
Hi, I'm Courtney Friel. Coming up, I'll show you some of my personal video I shot with my own camera immediately after the storm, and I'll share my experience of what it was like from my first day on the job to be covering a deadly tornado.
I'm Chrissy Thrasher. I started at WBBJ 2 weeks after the storm. I'll give you my perspective on how the community came together after this tragic event. Coming up.
Coming up, how are the businesses in downtown Jackson that were affected by the tornadoes maintaining day by day?
Coming up a little later, I'll tell you from a personal perspective about what went on before, during, and after the storm.
You know, it may be a bit of a cliche that a disaster can bring out, the best in people, but in this case, right here in Jackson, Madison County, and throughout West Tennessee, it really did, and we'll take a closer look.
Teamwork is something you hear a lot about in athletics, and that's what happens here at Channel 7 in the case of severe weather. The sports department also helped out. You'll hear about it next.
I'm Keita Nicholson. Coming up, I'll tell you my perspective of what happened the night of the storm.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's hour-long special After the Storm. I'm Anjali Smith.
And I'm Brad Douglas. Nearly 1 month after the storm, we wanted to give you a look at the past month's transformations as a city and for us as a station.
Now, we've brought you continuous storm coverage throughout the month of May, and now we want you to see Jackson through our eyes.
We've talked to many people and heard many stories about sorrow, sacrifice, and giving.
So for the next hour, we'll revisit the storm, the aftermath, and what's being done today.
One of the things about this series of storms that was interesting, we'd actually talked about this series of storms a week prior to them ever showing up here. The previous weekend and the week before, that Sunday night, we had seen some data and some computer models that indicated that Sunday might be a particularly severe Sunday. And certainly on the Saturday night before in the weathercast I'd been doing here, we had talked about the severe potential on the next day, that it probably would be a stormy day in portions of the southeast, possibly here in the Mid-South. And got up on Sunday, had looked at some of the weather data. Kansas City had already been hit by a pretty huge tornado, had some death and destruction there. Came on into the station early just to be prepared, and I had told Tom Britt that night, who was producing and anchoring the shows that night, I said, I'm going to run out and grab a burger and drive through window pretty quickly, because I think later tonight we're probably not going to have the opportunity to sit around and eat. We're going to be pretty busy, I think.
I guess one of the things that I thought as I came into the station that Sunday night was what type of severe weather situation we were going to have. I'd been following it for most of the day, and in most cases when we come in, we have a severe weather situation. We have a few thunderstorms and nothing really happens. We have maybe a tornado warning or two. But I thought that night would be a little bit different, because when I got here, I noticed that the humidity was just unbearable. I mean, you could actually cut it with a knife. Well, then we had warning after warning that started coming through. First up in northwest Tennessee around Dyer County, and then other places started getting warnings. And then they started coming in towards the Jackson area. And when they issued that warning for Jackson, I knew we were in trouble, because they had started saying that, well, now we've got sightings of tornado warnings and sightings of tornadoes on the ground. And then we started hearing reports of the police officers yelling, I've got to take cover. I see it coming down Parkway. That's when we definitely knew that there was going to be a problem. And at that point, we started fearing for our own lives here at the station.
Sure enough, got back in here around 7 o'clock, and we already had tornado warnings in eastern Arkansas, southeast Missouri at that time, and by 9 o'clock they were already breaking out across western Tennessee. Funny thing, Gary Pickens had actually called in and said, do you need any help right now? And I said, well, I think I got it taken care of at the moment, Gary. It's, you know, we've got 1 or 2 warnings working, but it's not that busy. Within 30 minutes, I was so busy in the weather office, I turned around, called his wife back, and said, hey, could you tell Gary to come on down? I'm extremely busy. She says, he's in the shower right now getting ready. He's coming in. And of course, before it was over with, he and Eddie were all in here. And the most tremendous thing, I've done weather for over 12 years, both here in the Jackson market and the Memphis markets, and had covered tornado warnings before, tornado outbreaks in the Mid-South, but never had one coming directly at me in the station while we were on the air. That was probably one of the most awesome feelings. And then to hear the hail hitting this building and the wind, that was one of the most eerie feelings, and I'm certain after we all left the studio here and ran to take cover in the hall, that'll be a night that I'll never forget.
The night of the storm, I was actually off work. I remember my pager started going off and I had no clue what was going on, but I headed to the station and I sat here listening to every weather alert that went off, and the first place we heard was hit was Dyersburg. I checked out a camera and headed towards Dyer County, not knowing what I was running into. I drove through Crockett County and alerts were out that Crockett and Dyer County both were under a tornado warning. Gripping the steering wheel, I called my mom and told her I was okay and to watch Channel 7. Pulling into Dyersburg, the entire town was completely dark. The power was out and the only thing that lit the sky was lightning.
I've heard and seen one drop close to Unionville, but it's just been one tornado right after another dropping here.
I remember I didn't know where I was going or how bad the situation was, so I pulled into a parking lot where a few residents had stopped to get out of the storm. That's when I heard the news of a mobile home park that had been hit. I got directions and headed that way. When I got out, I had to park nearly 2 miles away because trees were down. I had to use the light on top of the camera to find my way through the neighborhood. A few residents joined me and walked down the streets in shock. I heard them say, "That used to be a house. It's completely gone." As I got closer, I could hear screams as they were searching for people.
I seen there, I didn't see any fatalities at all. Just there was one child that was just scraped up, and there was another older guy that something fell and hit him in the back, and that's what we've seen so far up there.
As you can see, homes were stripped from their foundations, power lines were down, trees were uprooted, windows busted, but the main concern in the community was for those they loved.
When they called out for all the volunteers to come down to Station 1, I was on my way there and run into the trailer park and seen what had happened, and I stopped there and just started helping search through there.
And what all did you see at the trailer park?
Oh, there was trailers that had been picked up, moved, thrown 25 to 30 feet, most of them turned over. There might have been 10 left that wasn't touched.
When I finished up, I tried to call the station. No answer. The phones were out. I decided to head back to Jackson. Little did I know, a tornado had touched down and wiped out many parts of the city. Here's an interview I did while traveling back to Jackson.
I tried to get to several different places. A lot of trees were down, power lines just torn in half, and a lot of the roads were blocked off. City officials, residents there just walking around with flashlights, trying to find people.
I came into work around 7:30 Sunday night and left around 5:45 Monday morning.
May 4th started out as a routine day in the Channel 7 newsroom. I was filling in because we were pretty short of staff and producing the 5 and 10 cast, and Jason Plank, photographer, was in and out of the building all day, and then Tommy Stafford, the weathercaster, came in late in the afternoon, and he told me at that time that the approaching system was probably going to be a bad one. Little did he know, or did I know, that his words were going to be prophetic, and that night would forever change the way we look at Jackson, Tennessee. We got through the 5 o'clock cast, no emergency weather, no big warnings or watches, and then later in the evening, that's when things began to hit. We had the 10 o'clock show ready, we were ready to go, and then Tommy went into emergency mode, and crews came in, we were feeding information out to the set. What really piqued my attention, though, was about a few minutes later after we had the one on the ground in South Jackson, was that a policeman, who apparently was stationed out north near the Old Hickory Mall, he said, "There's one coming down Parkway, I'm taking cover." That's when I immediately ran up to the studio and told the guys in there that we're going to have to get outside of the studio and get into a safe place in the building, which is a hallway, probably the only place in the building where there are 2 walls.
I'd been talking to Tommy earlier on in the evening, and we pretty well decided that if these storms continue to intensify like they were, we probably would have to call in the entire staff. And so I kept watching the storms, kept making phone calls to Tommy to make sure that he had all the help he needed. And eventually, when we began to see these storms continuing to grow and move into the area and intensify, I realized it was time that we got to the station to get some help. So jumped in the car, and on the way I was thinking, you know, this could be a pretty big storm. And so when we got here, it just within minutes it seemed like everything began to explode across West Tennessee, and a lot of it looked like it was targeted right toward Jackson and Madison County. And so by then a good number of the staff had gotten here, and so we pretty well got a handle on things. And when the storm hit, it was pretty doggone interesting. We were down to the point where we were all huddled in the hallway out here.
Downtown, like I said, is just devastating. This is the first time I've ever seen this, and this is an eye-opening experience. The flow of traffic is being diverted because of all the debris in the middle of the street. I mean, it really does look like what you would think a war zone would look like, with debris in the middle of the street and buildings crumbled and down power lines and trees that are bent over and signs that are just in the middle of the street, crumbled metal everywhere.
May 4th, the heart of Jackson changed in a heartbeat. When we first arrived on the scene here in downtown Jackson, photographer Edwin Good and myself, we had no idea what was going on. It was all dark, obviously. When we got down here, we could just tell that things were not right. And we had, standing outside the live truck, we were shining a light while he was shooting just to see what was going on. And the only way that I can describe it would be quiet chaos. And you say, well, how can quiet be chaotic? You would think that a chaotic situation, it would be loud, but it wasn't like that. The only thing that we heard was actually from the court buildings going around here was the alarms going off, the on one side and the on the other side, and they were all going off all at the same time. Other than that, it was very quiet, though you had people in both directions down here trying to get out, trying to figure out what was going on, and they really could not do that. I went up to one police officer, and the look in his eyes I will never forget. He had this look of just being overwhelmed, and you have to remember that the police tower was one of the first things to get knocked down, so they didn't have any communication back and forth. So we were kind of trying to figure out what was going on, and the police officers were trying to figure out the same thing. And we could just see Mother Liberty Church was completely destroyed, and the Burger King was completely destroyed. So our first inclination was to get out, shoot some pictures, and that way we could send them back to you. So that is our story, Edwin Good and myself. We were the first news team down here, first ones on the scene to see the destruction, and first team to bring you back the pictures of what was going down here. Now, you look at all the boarded up buildings, and they're working on remodeling all this stuff. And the thing about the tornadoes that really is good, if anything could be good coming out of it, is that people have really come together, people have bonded, and they're going to rebuild, and they're going to make a stronger Jackson, and Jackson is already stronger. So that's the great things.
For me, Sundays begin about 6 a.m., and with church-related activities, I have a full day, and I got home about 9:30 that evening. Of course, already the storms were developing well to the west, and we were under a tornado watch, so I planned to go in to work probably around midnight, which is a general scenario that we have set up here at the station. And I probably got 1 hour sleep before I went in. The warnings were being issued to our west, so I got up, got ready, and followed the progress of the storm. And then the tornado warning was issued for Jackson and Madison County, and I immediately went into the station. I live about 6 miles north of the station, so I drove in with the emergency lights flashing. I was probably at the station about 10 minutes when it became necessary to get in the hallway. Hail was pounding at the roof, and I was able to get a look at the hail size, and it was approaching tennis ball size. I'd never seen personally hail that large. Wind was rushing loudly, but it never reached that freight train sound. I've been doing broadcast meteorology for 25 years, and this was the most grueling event I've ever been involved in. And all in all, that Sunday night, Monday, I probably went 30 hours without sleep.
Good afternoon, I'm Will Carter. You know, for every brick that still lies on the ground here in downtown Jackson, there's representation of years of hard work and dreams that were shattered in a matter of minutes. But for me, the reality of what had actually happened wouldn't come until the next morning when I had a chance to actually make a stop here and see the reality firsthand. But before daybreak came the nightmare that would change the lives of many West Tennesseans forever. The night started like any other Sunday evening for me, but in a few hours that would change.
The National Weather Service in Memphis has issued a tornado warning.
Awaking to the tone of my weather radio going off, I immediately went to the TV to get an update.
You know, we're actually shooting to you in the blind. We don't know whether or not we're on the air or not. We're picking up golf ball size hail. All of us have huddled into one room here at this point in the station.
But at that moment, the electricity was gone, and I was left in the dark, wondering if the TV station would even be standing when I made it to work. It would be a couple of hours later before I would finally be able to drive into Jackson, because the only information I had was what I was getting from my battery-powered weather radio. The commute into work was one that was far from fun, as heavy rain, wind, and constant lightning made driving visibility close to zero. But as I entered the city limits, it wouldn't take long to see the damage was far worse than I had ever imagined.
And we have received a report, in case you're just joining us, we have received a report that there has been some tornado damage in downtown Jackson.
But it wouldn't stop there. Throughout the night, the National Weather Service would issue dozens more tornado warnings for much of West Tennessee. I would spend my night trying to coordinate live shots while producing Good Morning West Tennessee. As storms continued to pound the area, more and more damage reports began to pour into the newsroom.
There's very extensive damage downtown as well as in other parts of the county, not just in the city. We're under a state of emergency in the city and county, and we're under a curfew till 7 a.m. in the morning, declared by both mayors. And everyone should stay calm, notify the emergency services if they need somebody to come to their house to get them, if their house is destroyed. Otherwise, just stay home. Don't get out on the road. There's some more, as you just reported, there are some more storms possibly headed this way.
Subsided and the rain has
As day would break, I, along with the crew of Good Morning West Tennessee, would pack up and head into downtown for the first time. It was at that moment when a nightmare became a harsh reality for me. Everywhere you looked, there were buildings destroyed and power lines toppled. Years of hard work and many dreams were shattered in just a matter of moments. And for the first time, I knew the city I had grown up in would never be the same again.
Well, looking back on May 4th, it was a Sunday. It was going to be my third week at work here at WBBJ. And I was going to bed early because I work on the morning show and trying to get to sleep, and yet the storm kept getting wilder and wilder. And around midnight, I got the call to come in. And well, before we knew it, we were down doing the show live downtown. And as the sun came up, boy, was I surprised by my reaction to just what downtown looked like and how painful it was. I usually somehow am able to keep a barrier or a wall up. I've always been able to do that, and yet, boy, I couldn't do it, and the emotion was just overwhelming. I was really taken back. I've always been a fan of historic downtowns and old architecture, and that's really the heart of the city, and a place I love most about Jackson is its downtown. So to see the devastation, and at this point we really didn't have an idea on the fatalities, and soon we would be getting those numbers, and it was a much bigger deal than I even knew about.
For the 7-Hour in the Sports Department, Sunday, May 4th started out like any other day. We had our 5:30 show, and I was excited about the 10 o'clock show because the Jacks were in town, and we had also interviewed Trey Teague. But of course, the 10 o'clock show never happened. Tommy Stafford went on air during the network programming to give us an update on the weather. But I was still thinking we'd have our 10 o'clock show. But as I started to pay attention to the warnings that were coming, I realized the conditions, well, they were getting worse. I also remember taking phone calls, assisting the production staff. But what I remember the most are the voices on the scanners.
accident report on the phone. Okay, Kimball, it's going to be at a residence 8.
7 Eyewitness News. The emergency crews were saying downtown looked like a war zone, and they were naming buildings that were damaged. And being from Jackson, it was hard to believe that those areas I drive through every day were unrecognizable. Well, after the storm had passed over, I tried to drive home, but every possible way I knew of driving home was blocked off. And of course, people were walking the streets, surveying the damage. I remember a lot of cars on the road, and I was surprised because, well, it was so late at night, or so early in the morning, rather. I was surprised that so many people would be out, and there was major traffic problems, power lines everywhere. Well, thankfully, I was able to get back to the station. I slept on the couch. This was around, I guess, 4 a.m. So I tried to drive home a few hours later in the morning at about 8 o'clock. Well, I knew I couldn't get to the house, so I went back to the station. I worked the cameras for Gary later that morning. We talked to Mayor Jerry Gist. He was downtown surveying the damage also. Well, it was really confusing because you know you're not going to have a sports show because, well, sports is secondary when you have natural disasters like that. And secondly, again, being from the area, it was just terrible to see those landmarks destroyed.
After that first initial warning that we got from Madison County, we got a call from Emergency Management Director Dan Vaughn, who said that at that point there was a sighting of a tornado in South Madison County. Then the reports started coming in over the police scanners. The police and the sheriff's deputies started yelling. They see it. They actually see it coming. One officer was saying, I've got to duck behind a building to take cover. We, here in the station, had decided to do the same thing. We took cover. After a few minutes, we started hearing hail hit the roof of the station, and we started worrying, was the roof going to come off? And then we took cover in a closet. And then after that, we continued to stay on the air to give West Tennessee the vital warnings that they needed to know. We were here to do our job. We felt like we did it effectively. We were hoping we were going to stay on the air. And from the reports that we got, we actually stayed on the air the entire time, never missed a beat. People saw the warnings coming. We were able to provide them. We were more than happy to do that. We've now taken a look at the storm, but what about the aftermath?
Well, we'll show you our perspective on the damage around Madison County and how we feel it affected the community.
Are you one of the thousands who need a new roof following the devastating storms in Jackson? Let WS Roofing help you decide what repairs you need and give you a free estimate. WS Roofing has years of experience and have served the Jackson area for more than 12 years. We'll work with your insurance company to settle claims quickly. WS Roofing uses the best quality roofing supplies for commercial and residential buildings. Call us today for prompt service, 660-1233. It may rain tomorrow.
There's only one VTX 1800, the biggest, baddest, most powerful V-twin you can ride. Built from the ground up to be unique, so you can customize the VTX as extreme as you want to be. And now we'll start you off with $1,000 of Honda genuine accessories to turn our VTX into your VTX.
At Lake Hill Motors, we may have the lowest prices in America. West Tennessee's most unique dining experience is Cafe Lafayette in downtown Jackson. Cafe Lafayette creates a taste of New Orleans with a mix of savory Louisiana cuisine and Jackson's hottest music every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. Have dinner, dessert, or just relax with friends at Cafe Lafayette, 207 West Lafayette in historic downtown Jackson.
We're there every day for America's public school children, getting them to and from school, helping them learn, making them nutritious meals,
Keeping them safe.
pointing them in the right direction. But you, Lexi, how's that
We do what it takes to help teachers teach
and children learn.
We're education support professionals.
Members of the National
Education Association.
And we're working to make public schools great.
for every child.
For me, the May 4 tornadoes became a very trying time. While I've been doing news for several years and have seen the effects of many tornadoes in the area, I don't think it had ever really set in the reality that it could happen to me or my own community. On the Monday morning following that tragic night, I had a chance to make my way into downtown. I remember the first time I viewed the damage, I couldn't believe it. It was almost surreal. Downtown is full of many childhood memories for me, and seeing buildings that I have frequently visited destroyed was almost too much to look at. But I think that what amazed me the most was, once again, the strength of this community. Just as in '99, people came from all over the state to pitch in a helping hand, and for those picking up the pieces, their strength and courage continue to show me why Jackson is such a great city to be living in.
Looking back, 1 month later, that night was scary, driving through tornado warnings. My mom, of course, thinks I'm crazy. She calls me a storm chaser, but being able to be there that night and relay to our viewers what happened, well, it's a part of my job. Since that night, telling the stories of how West Tennessee is recovering, I've seen people from all over make their way to the area to pitch in, and talking with those residents who have lost their homes or family members, seeing them pull together and get their lives back. That's what life is all about. And I'm proud of this community and how West Tennessee has handled the devastation that pounded the area that night. I would like to say thank you for making Channel 7 what it is. You make West Tennessee's news channel.
I've probably been to downtown Jackson at least 10 times since the storms hit, but every time I'm here, something else catches my eye, something else I just can't believe. And even today when we were here, I mean, it's sad to think that this was probably in some little kid's room, and at some point, I'm sure some little guy's looking for them. There are bank statements here, there are clothes behind me, there's just so much stuff, and it's so hard to just comprehend everything that's been done here.
When I woke up the next morning, I did not know what I was in for, and the first thing I saw was my car, which had numerous dents in it. But we looked over at Courtney Friel, who's actually my roommate, and her car was just totaled. I mean, her back windshield was completely out. It was just really bad. And we went right to the station. It took us probably what should have taken us 15 minutes. It took us well over a half hour. And as soon as we walked in the door, we were sent right back out. We went downtown Jackson, and you know, if I had had more time, I think I would have been nervous. But we had the entire community that was counting on us, and I don't think we really comprehended that. We knew we had to get out there. We knew we had to show what was going on, and that's really all that was on our minds at that point. When we were driving into downtown area, it was just, I was saying to myself, are we in Jackson, Tennessee, or am I somewhere else at a war zone in the Middle East is what I was thinking. And the first thing that I saw were these overturned trucks, these huge trucks that had been completely flipped over, and I was just thinking what strong winds would have had to have taken place for that to happen. I started looking around when I was there and saw all these national news stations that were from everywhere, and it just hit me that, wow, we're that city that you see on TV where everybody is just saying, oh gosh, it's so horrible, did you see what happened there? And it was surreal. From there, we were trying to think of what to cover, and it was just, how do you even answer a question like that? Numerous things could have been covered that day, and it was really hard to focus on just one. I ended up going to Lexington, and the damage there was just as bad as it was in Jackson. Looking back on the week, it was just a blur. Everybody was putting in at least 12 hours. Things are starting to get back to normal here, and I really feel that a lot of good things are going to come from this disaster.
I guess the biggest thing right now, you know, we talk to people every day, and I get a chance to talk to people, you know, of all type every day. And I think the biggest thing right now, a lot of people are asking the question, what happens now? And that's the biggest question. I mean, this tornado is so different than the one that we had in '99. And, you know, one of the reasons is because it affected so many neighborhoods. You know, a lot of people had insurance, you know, is what I'm hearing, you know. A lot of people had insurance, and this time, a lot of people don't because they're renting. You know, it affected more homeowners before, and that's kind of the general reaction of what we're hearing as far as community-wise. You know, will we recover, I guess, is the big question. Surely we will, but I tell you, I mean, it was kind of like the day after this thing, when I kind of walked downtown and had a chance to go through the Parkview Courts and James Street and some of the other streets in town that were so badly hit. it almost looked like we never would recover. You know, it really did. It looked like we could never recover from this, but the people in Jackson have already started to massive cleanup work. They've started to do some of the things that we need to do to try to come back from this catastrophe. You know, that's another reason why we actually started Channel 7's Army, for that very reason, to try to help some of these communities where they may not necessarily be able to get immediate help. And that's what Channel 7's Army is all about. We've kind of combined some of the corporate people like Krispy Kreme, Blockbuster, the Diamond Jacks, and, you know, that's just to mention a few, and there's just a host of others that are still coming on. So that's kind of how the tornado has affected me.
Of course, I grew up in Jackson, Madison County, so I know all the buildings. And I looked down Lafayette Street to the west, and I saw the Nando Jones building, you know, a building that I'd shopped in as a kid. You know, it would never be the same again. Drove past the New Southern Hotel and saw the beating that it took, and I realized that the Grand Ole Hotel, where I spent my junior, senior banquet in school, you know, it's never going to be the same again. I worked out of there in a radio station for a while. It would forever change. St. Luke's Church, Mother Liberty, places that I'd been into for, you know, weddings and funerals and covering news events. They would, you know, never be the same again. I really realized that, you know, Jackson, Madison County would change forever. But the thing that has heartened me since that time is how quickly we have recovered, how quickly folks have moved back in, opened businesses again. The Dixie Castle, a long-time downtown business, open again for business, just amazing. And other businesses, you know, rising from the ashes. And I've heard this echoed over and over again that perhaps we will, you know, rise again. We will have a better downtown Jackson and a better Jackson, Madison County. And I think that's what's great about living in West Tennessee is the fact that people get together, pull together, and we rebuild. We come out of this and move on and make the area a better one for us and for our children.
Hi, I'm Courtney Friel. My first weekend in Jackson was when the tornado hit, and being from California, we don't have those types of storms. Going through this tornado was an experience that I will never forget.
Whoa, how about that lightning?
With the weather getting worse, I know I have to get to the TV studio, but find out the station is blocked in by debris. Not only that, my car is flooded because the rear window is shattered into a million pieces by the hail. So I do the next best thing, grab my own camera and head out to talk with others in my apartment complex.
One of several windshields in this parking lot that's been destroyed.
I watch the coverage all night, and when daylight breaks, my roommate Amy Silver and I head out to what was supposed to be our training day. There are missing windows everywhere. That's my car, which ends up being totaled, but after finding out what lies ahead, it's the least of my concerns.
Our life truck is at Unity Park. It's on down farther.
We're in the news car now, heading downtown.
Oh, you have to down there, yeah.
Oh my gosh, wow.
As I'm taping, thoughts fly through my head. I've never seen anything this shocking before. Is this really happening? I feel like I'm in a war zone. To me, downtown was so cute, and now it's completely ruined. How many people could have died? I can't believe my first day of reporting is a national story. Then I'm sent to 3 incredibly damaged locations to do my first ABC7 story. Riverside Drive is a tangled mess of wires. It looks like a bomb went off at Procter & Gamble. What used to be a ceiling is now a skylight. And children are checking out what's left of their Jackson Middle School. There is no time to be nervous for my first live shot on the 5 p.m. news.
Our newest member of the 7 Eyewitness News family, Courtney Friel, has the latest on that. Courtney?
Well, Brad, this was a crazy first day of reporting, and an emotional, devastating, and adventurous day that will forever be marked in my mind.
Well, I was out of town the weekend that the tornadoes hit, but early on Monday morning, my producer called me, and she told me the news, and it was probably the most difficult news I've had to hear in a long time. But it wasn't nearly as difficult to hear as it was to see when I actually drove into the city. The town was completely demolished downtown, and through it all, I just remember the sense of community in Jackson and people's attitudes, and it continues to amaze me.
Driving into Jackson on Monday morning, I really wasn't too sure what to expect.
I was warned about the debris in the streets, and I was even warned of what I could possibly see when I entered the city. But there was absolutely nothing that could have prepared me for what I was about to experience. It's so amazing to me how someone's eyes can tell an entire story. Well, that day, I saw hundreds of people's stories of lives broken and dreams that completely were shattered, and countless questions that were just waiting to be answered, but no one could speak. We took our cameras around the city to record the reactions of the community, but we already knew the reactions of the community. They were reacting just as we had reacted, as human beings who had just lost not only material things, but as helpless citizens who had no choice but to pick up the broken pieces of our lives and to move on somehow. An enormous loss was suffered by the people in this community, but all in some way were touched by something so powerful that it could uproot a 300-pound tree as if it were nothing more than twigs, something that could not be stopped, but no doubt something that would always be remembered.
Well, once the storm was over, and the next morning when we began to look at things in the first light of day, I had the opportunity to go downtown and take a look at the wrath of the storm and the aftermath. And having lived here all these many, many years, I looked at downtown, and it was truly, in what I would say, a shambles. It didn't look like the downtown that I once knew. It was pretty torn up, and a lot of the old landmarks that many of us that have lived here virtually all our lives had come to, I guess you could say, be kind of complacent about the fact that they would probably always be there. But then the wrath of this storm certainly changed all that.
Covering these tornadoes and the aftermath has been an experience I'll never forget. In those first days after the storm, even we in the media had to work hard sometimes to get access to some of the hardest hit parts of the county. And when I was shooting in those areas like Denmark or the downtown area, I really felt a great responsibility to show our viewers the scope of the damage. Not only property damage, but really the toll it took on all the people that were affected. Often the hardest part for me was simply showing the sheer magnitude of the destruction. And this was especially true in the hours right after the tornado hit the downtown. Now, at that time, nobody really knew how bad the damage was going to be. And it seemed to me like every time I crossed the street or rounded a corner, I'd see something worse than in the place I'd just been. It was really hard to get a grasp on just how bad the damage was going to be. Covering this storm has really made me look at life a bit differently than I used to. I know when I go home at night after being in a place like Denmark all day, I really felt fortunate that my family and my home escaped from the storm unaffected.
After the damage, many residents were wondering what to do next.
We'll take a look at how Jackson is on the road to recovery and how we've tried to contribute.
Are you one of the thousands who need a new roof following the devastating storms in Jackson? Let WS Roofing help you decide what repairs you need and give you a free estimate. WS Roofing has years of experience and have served the Jackson area for more than 12 years. We'll work with your insurance company to settle claims quickly. WS Roofing uses the best quality roofing supplies for commercial and residential buildings. Call us today for prompt service, 660-1233. It may rain tomorrow.
Bain Services has been manufacturing, selling, and installing storm shelters for 3 generations. We offer underground and hillside shelters, a total of 9 models to choose from. Prices starting as low as $16.95 installed. We also provide expert one-day installation. Our Tennessee-based company serves all of Tennessee and its surrounding states. So don't wait till it's too late. Call or come see us today. Now located 1/4 mile north of Interstate 40 on Highway 70 East.
Just announced that Steve Marsh Ford in Milan. 0 interest up to 60 months. Ford Taurus, $16,995. Crown Victoria, $20,995. Windstar, $22,795. Explorer, $22,595. Sport Trek, $20,295. Ranger, $11,995. Expedition, $27,395. F-150 Super Cab, $18,695.
Come to Steve Marsh Ford in Milan, where price sells cars and service keeps customers.
Here's a look at this week's McCoy's Heating and Air Community Calendar. If you'd like your event on the McCoy's Heating and Air Community Calendar, send it 2 weeks in advance to the address on your screen.
Over 100 businesses in downtown Jackson were affected by the tornadoes. Some received minor damage, some may be totally destroyed. By the time it's all said and done, the face of downtown Jackson will definitely be changed forever. Many businesses are working with the Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Development, TEMA, FEMA, Mayor Charles Farmer, all trying to make sure that they can stay in downtown Jackson if at all possible, because they believe that's where the heart of the city is. We recently talked to one of the business owners of Baker's Drug Store. Been here for many, many years. Of course, he's had to move out to North Parkway, but he hopes to return. Here's what he had to say, along with Meg Goodman, the director of Downtown Development.
Well, our first obstacle was I couldn't get to my store. I was turned away. Of course, emergency personnel is about the only thing at that hour of the morning that they were letting in. But in the wee hours of Monday morning, I was able to walk into my store right through the windows.
Jackson Downtown Development is working to create task teams that focus on rebuilding downtown Jackson. We have everything from planning for 20 years in the future, how we need to use our land that is available now, to architectural designs who help us in renovating the buildings the way that we want them to be rebuilt, as well as, you know, to preserve the architectural integrity of downtown. We have a group of property owners involved. We have communications groups just to make sure everyone knows what's going on. It's going to be a good thing, and downtown Jackson's going to come back bigger and better.
Everybody thinks of Baker Drug Store, they think of downtown Jackson much as I do, and that is the home of Baker Drug Store. We're looking at a lot of destruction, a lot of damage in the downtown area, including our building and buildings adjacent to ours. And I'm still in negotiation with the insurance company, adjusters, engineers that they're flying into here to look at the building to see if it's structurally sound enough to replace. And then if, in fact, if it can be repaired, if we can economically afford to repair it.
Hopefully, with everyone working together, we can maintain downtown Jackson and possibly make it even better than it was before.
You know, when I was asked to focus on the volunteer efforts here in town, you know, following the May 4th tornadoes, I first thought of this place. I'm standing just adjacent to Parkview Montessori School. This is East Chester in front of me, and it was maybe 2 or 3 days after the tornadoes hit. Obviously, this neighborhood in complete ruin, really the poster child of devastated neighborhoods. And yet, folks came out and they were concentrating a lot of their efforts that day just right here on this baseball field. Obviously, a focal point for the community. And just what a sight it was. You had to see it, and I wish I had taken some pictures that day. Right now, we're going to take a look at some volunteers and volunteer efforts all over town and all over the county. Check this out.
It's awful. I can't believe I was just worshiping here 2 days ago. But it helps to be able to do something physical and try and clean it up.
And that's just what they did, hundreds of them, brick by brick, at St. Luke's Episcopal Church, a landmark on Church Street since the 1800s.
This is the third day. I think the first one was shock, and the second was emotion, and today's just work.
And that's just how it happened. With each passing day, the numbers of volunteers continued to grow. Even folks from faraway towns like Jackson, New Jersey, showed up to help.
You know, we're always amazed. 2 days ago, we were running desperately short of supplies. And then we see a truck pull in from Jackson, New Jersey to help Jackson, Tennessee. And it's wonderful just to see communities helping communities.
Whether it was cooking up burgers in front of the Jackson-Madison County Courthouse, or neighbors helping neighbors just off East Chester, or even putting the pieces back together at a school library, there's no doubt this is an event that will not soon be forgotten because people came out and they made a difference.
We want to hit it hard. We're going to be working for probably about 3 hours.
And when it came to organizing volunteer efforts, organizations like the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the United Way, The area relief ministries and countless churches were there from day one.
Today I feel like everyone in Jackson has really taken the aftermath and turned it into something positive one way or the other. Downtown Jackson itself, it seems like the buildings are going to be rebuilt bigger and better than they ever were. Today I feel like everyone in Jackson has taken some part of the storm and turned it into something positive. Downtown, the buildings, I really feel like they're going to be rebuilt bigger and better than they ever have been before. And something that's really special is the community. The community is all working together, and it's really a sight to see a complete stranger helping somebody else out. That's not something you see in every town across America, and it's definitely not something you see every day. Finally getting to see parts of downtown Jackson has been really exciting for me. All the places that have reopened, the restaurants, the stores, and everything else has been really wonderful, and I can't wait until everything is restored. It may be a while, but I think everyone will be surprised to see what Jackson is really capable of.
I moved to Jackson on May 18th to begin my career at WBBJ, 2 weeks after the tornadoes ripped through the area.
I was in Atlanta the night the tornadoes hit Jackson, and I remember turning on the TV Monday morning to watch the news and seeing Jackson plastered on the screen. So many emotions went through me at that time. First there was shock, then disbelief and sorrow for those who lost loved ones and for those who lost their homes. Watching something like that on TV is so much different than from seeing it firsthand. And for me, it's hard to imagine Jackson before the storm. The Jackson I've come to know and love consists of fallen debris, broken power lines, and shattered glass lining the streets of downtown. But underneath the rubble and destruction, hints of life before the storm exist, and the people in the community are working so hard to bring the downtown district back to life.
People have come from everywhere to help us.
Now, I've talked to restaurant owners, firefighters, police officers, and they all have such optimistic views of the future of downtown. Their pride of the city make me realize just how strong this community is and how everyone likes to work together for a common goal. Now, like I said earlier, I started 2 weeks after the tornadoes hit, and when I first saw downtown, I was just in awe of the destruction and devastation. But there were so many people out cleaning up, and some people had food stands set up for those who were picking up the rubble, and it was just an amazing sight to see. The storm might have ruined the city, but not the people's spirit to rebuild, and I look forward to watching Jackson grow into something amazing. After all this is over, Jackson is going to be stronger than ever before.
I believe that everyone at WBBJ worked extremely hard to provide coverage and information on the aftermath of the storm. We worked a lot of hours, but it was worth it to know that we were helping people. Besides our station, I was really impressed by all of the assistance that Jackson received, by both the community and people that came from out of town to help clean up, and by the churches and relief ministries, the donations. There were just so many contributions that I witnessed. Just to know how many nice altruistic people there are in this town makes me feel great that I moved here, and I am positive there will be a bigger and better Jackson.
There are heroes among us. They walk disguised around our community every day, wearing normal, everyday clothes. They listen to the same music as we do. They go to the same barber shops and grocery stores that we do. They look just like you and me. They're our next-door neighbors, our school teachers, our utility and postal workers, our police officers and firefighters, our volunteers. No, they didn't run for president of the United States, but they could have. They wake up every morning, they dress their kids before school. They mow their lawns every Saturday morning, and when they look in their mirrors, they see just what we see. After tornadoes ravaged through this community in West Tennessee, the sight for many was more than they could take, and so the tears continued to flow. Not only for the homes and businesses and churches that were destroyed, but also for our loved ones that we lost. 11 confirmed deaths, that will forever be imprinted in our memories. Through the destruction, I questioned how Jackson could ever recover from quite possibly the most damaging storm that the city has ever seen. But to my surprise, my question was quickly answered. And so we picked up the pieces and we moved on. Before the end of that week, cleanup crews were working hard to start the recovery process and clean the debris off the streets. JEA crews worked day and night, and within days recovered the power for more than 28,000 people. Red Cross volunteers, Samaritan's Purse, and so many others from as far away as Taiwan pitched in to nurse this community back to health. And for that, we all will be forever grateful and forever better. It's true, the tornadoes on May 4th did change many things in this community, but it never changed who we are. It only improved our image of who we are. And who we are is a remarkable people. We are heroes.
Coming up, we'll hear from Mayor Farmer and how he feels about the storm and how Jackson is doing as a community.
And we'll talk to him next.
At Steve Marsh Ford, we know that conceited slogans mean nothing unless we have the satisfied customers to back them up.
We are the proud recipient of the Ford Customer Service Excellence Award for 2 years running.
The same certified technicians to earn the Ford Customer Service Excellence Award are here today to help you with tires, brakes, transmissions, and all at the best prices in West Tennessee and 90 days, same as cash.
Come to Steve Marsh Ford in Milan, where price sells cars and service keeps customers.
Fain Services has been manufacturing, selling, and installing storm shelters for 3 generations. We offer underground and hillside shelters, a total of 9 models to choose from. Prices starting as low as $16.95 installed. We also provide expert one-day installation. Our Tennessee-based company serves all of Tennessee and its surrounding states. So don't wait till it's too late. Call or come see us today. Now located 1/4 mile north of Interstate 40 on Highway 70 East.
Next Oprah. They say he's the best in the business. How he chose your home. How he knew what you owned. Why you were such an easy target. What you can learn from a convicted burglar. Then
the most inept thug to break into this house in 10 seconds. This is really worthless.
expert advice that could keep you safe. A home makeover not to be missed. Next Oprah.
Weekday afternoons at 4, followed by 7 Eyewitness News.
Don't forget the Crime Stoppers Golf Tournament has been rescheduled for June the 9th at 12 noon. For more information, call 424-8477. Now let's catch a few criminals. Suspect number 1 is Elton Cole. He is wanted for criminal attempt to commit first-degree murder and aggravated assault. Suspect number 2 is Anthony Wilburn. He is wanted for 2 counts of aggravated rape. Suspect number 3 is David Hammond, and he is wanted for rape and violation of probation. If you see these suspects, call Crime Stoppers at 424-8477.
The good part of this disaster is that we have so many people who are strong in their faith and resilient otherwise, and those people are committed to rebuilding what was destroyed and to making it better than what it was. The parts of the job that we can take off their shoulders, we want to do that because there are opportunities. And we can rebuild this city and rebuild the neighborhoods that were destroyed into finer places to live and finer places to do business. And we're going to do that. But we have to do it with the assistance of all the people who were affected. Well, it's sort of like when one's parent sees them in danger. Your instincts are such that you don't really think about very much. You act on instincts, and those are the first reactions, I think, to everybody involved in the emergency operation, doing what must be done as quickly as possible. What we do in the next few months will say so much about what we look like and what this city is about 100 years from now. And so it's important that we do it right. And because the downtown is the soul of the city, and we certainly want downtown to be a vibrant part of the city. a beautiful part of the city. We want those homes in the East Jackson neighborhood to be restored, and we want that to be even a better place to live. And all of that is possible if we set our minds to it, and I think that's being done and will continue to be done.
West Tennessee's most unique dining experience is Cafe Lafayette in downtown Jackson. Cafe Lafayette creates a taste of New Orleans with a mix of savory Louisiana cuisine and Jackson's hottest music every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. Have dinner, dessert, or just relax with friends at Cafe Lafayette, 207 West Lafayette in historic downtown Jackson.
Just announced that Steve Marsh Ford in Milan. 0 interest up to 60 months. Ford Taurus, $16,995. Crown Victoria, $20,995. Windstar, $22,795. Explorer, $22,595. Sport Track, $20,295. Ranger, $11,995. Expedition, $27,395. F-150 Super Cab, $18,695.
Come to Steve Marsh Ford in Milan, where price sells cars and service keeps customers.
In 1999, Karina Morariu competed at Wimbledon and won in women's doubles. In 2001, she triumphed again in mixed doubles at the Australian Open. After that, she faced a real challenge.
Hi, I'm Karina Morariu. Last year, I waged the most important battle of my life, against cancer. When I heard I had leukemia, I thought my career was over. But I'm back playing now, thanks to leading-edge research and breakthrough treatments. Research saved my life. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society raises funds for research to find cures for blood cancers like leukemia, lymphoma, and myeloma. They make life better for patients and families. Now I'm working with them to help save more lives. You can help too.
Call the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society at 888-HELP-LLS.
Thank you so much for joining us for our After the Storm special.
Now that you've had a chance to see the eye of the storm through the eye of the camera, we hope you can see the damage the storm actually caused.
And we here at WBBJ truly appreciate all that was done by this community to take care of the victims of the storm.